This is the Innovation Inc. podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Brown Evans. We sit down with our favorite entrepreneurs and nerd out on anything that involves innovation in the corporate space. So if you work for a corporate company, but you think like an entrepreneur, we're your people, and we're really excited you're here. Before we jump in, a huge thank you to our sponsor and Inc. 5000 company, Apex Software. They create powerful custom software, websites, and mobile apps that take your business's innovative ideas and turn them into realities. Reach out today to get a quote at apexsoftware.com. All right, everyone, let's get to it. Hey guys, it's Liz. Welcome back to the Innovation Inc. podcast. I'm very excited for our guest today, who's driven all the way down from the north, from northern Kentucky. From the Cincinnati region. Do you say Cincinnati, or are you on the Kentucky side, actually?
I am on the Cincinnati side.
Okay, so you're a traitor on the Ohio side. We won't count it against you. No, today with us is Carlo. He is with Toyota Ventures. So why I'm excited to talk to him today, we've kind of dabbled in the past, some of our episodes around like corporate VC, what venture capital looks like. I feel like people either know exactly how they work or they're sort of shrouded in risk and these scary concepts to talk about for companies. So we're not going to get into necessarily how all the numbers work out today, but we are going to talk about the program that Toyota Ventures has built and what makes it so special, what makes it work. So before I go any further, Carlo, why don't you introduce yourself, a little bit of your background, what your role is now, and we'll get into it.
Awesome. My name is Carlo Cruz, and I am a portfolio engagement manager at Toyota Ventures. We are the corporate venture capital arm of Toyota, and our firm is based in San Francisco, but I am, as Liz mentioned, based in Cincinnati, Ohio. My background's actually in chemical engineering. Funny enough, I got my MBA from the University of Cincinnati many years ago, and it's been awesome. I actually returned and was an adjunct professor there for a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, teaching professional development. So I went for the co-op program, was actually a Toyota co-op to start, and joined Toyota Motor North America full-time as a paint engineer, mostly focused on robotic installations, construction project management. It wasn't a world I expected, I think, in college. But in the latter part of my career, I actually looked more into how emerging technology could help the manufacturing environment. So I was evaluating startups. I helped start this place called the Tilt Lab down in the new Georgetown headquarter office. And it was a great time of looking at how does new technology work in a really classically rigid and maybe slower speed environment.
So it sounds like you almost stumbled into this sort of innovation startup space at Toyota. How long? So talk to us more about the Tilt Lab. What was the vision for that? And then what did it actually end up becoming?
So when Toyota announced One Toyota, they were looking at new and fresh ideas about how to invigorate the workforce and kind of stir up what talent existed and what was happening in the minds of people as we transition to this next phase. And so that the headquarter office in Georgetown started this essentially makerspace where people could prototype and test ideas. And it started actually as a pretty nascent idea in itself amongst the team members. And with the support of a lot of executives, they created an area with a lot of different studios and capabilities to manufacture, to prototype and test. And then from that, we started thinking about, okay, if we enable our team members to prototype and test their new ideas, what's the next level? How do we
Where do they go from there?
Right.
Almost?
How do you go closer from just a production idea to how do you bring it into a bigger test, maybe in an actual manufacturing environment, and then deploy it full-time in production? So we started to think about that and look at the life cycle of an idea, and we realized that there's a treasure trove of just smart people in the world, building startups, getting venture capital, and through our evaluation of these small companies, we realized that some of their really early ideas just needed essentially product market fit in manufacturing. So we were looking and going to conferences across the US when going to conferences was a thing.
Conferences?
Yeah, seeing people in person was such a rare event back then. So we actually went around at all these different conferences, looked at parallel industries and how their technology could fit into the manufacturing world. And then we were just discovering, I'd say hundreds of startups that could have applicable technology that worked in a manufacturing environment. In about 2 years ago, sorry, time's really hard, I think.
2020 didn't count. So.
Yeah, right. And I was trying to think, I was going to say a year ago, but 2 years ago, we actually organized a number of proof of concept projects and demonstrated them in that Tilt Lab. We brought in, I believe, 10 different startups, several of which are part of the Toyota Ventures portfolio, even before, and I'll get into that later, even before we started the engagement. And they demonstrated how their technology would apply in manufacturing. And that was really an eye-opening moment, I think, not only for the working level, the team members, but the executives that came out to this demo day, because they were able to say, okay, there are some smaller companies that can provide a lot of value to our environment. And it just might take a little time. It might take a little investment. It might take a little maneuvering on how the tech sits today, but eventually it will land in a factory and impact and add value to the process.
So it sounds like, to kind of separate Toyota Ventures and the Makers Lab, the Tilt Lab. So you guys started this as almost like a playground for employees, right? To like help them dream a little bit, play around a little bit. They can come in, test out stuff with, world-class machines or whatever that is. And then if there are applications, I love that story of employee innovation and sort of helping them think more broadly than just what their projects are on their desk. But then I love the bleed into, okay, well, we're letting employees do this and that technology can be applied differently. Well, who else is out there? And then it sounds like it sort of naturally flowed into Toyota Ventures.
Right. So the Tilt Lab itself is, exactly to your point, was a space to think outside the box, to take the ideas you have as you walk through your daily work or look around a manufacturing plant and you think, oh, why couldn't we do it this way? And so the Tilt Lab sat as this sandbox, essentially, where you are safe and you're able to test your idea and you're able to explore what goes beyond my daily work. And then, and you're correct, as we started to expand that idea in looking at what exists outside of Toyota, we looked at these small companies and startups, and it was an easy blend. We actually met the Toyota Ventures team, I'd say four years ago when the fund started, and it was actually, I think, before Toyota officially created the Toyota Ventures brand. We met a few of the members, and they introduced us to a few of the companies that they were interested in investing in, and we started to explore where could these ideas go. And for some of the companies, it was actually their idea stage. So it was even before they had a demonstration to show us.
Wow.
And we helped through a number of meetings and conversations, plant tours. We, at the Tilt Lab back then, in my past life, showed some of these companies what could be possible. And then many years later, we actually were able to show their idea then applied in the manufacturing environment. And now they're growing and raising further capital. And funny enough, now I'm sitting in the Toyota Ventures team and no longer on the Tilt Lab team.
Right. So that's a great transition. Let's talk a little bit more about Toyota Ventures. So you said that you're one of the only people that has the manufacturing background, which I imagine is a huge asset to that team to actually know like where these ideas or startups can end up being applied. But so tell us how that transition happened for you personally first, and then we'll get into a little bit more about Toyota Ventures.
Yeah. So I've always had a passion for startups. I think in my early childhood, in high school, college, I thought I would always start something. Funny enough, in college, I helped start a Bollywood fusion dance competition.
I was hoping we would get here.
And I think that was one of the first times I learned, like, what's it like to form a team? What's it like to manage a lot of people? How do you coalesce people around a vision? How do you raise funds?
For a Bollywood competition, as one does.
Funny enough, even when you're doing a nonprofit event production, the fundraising is one of the hardest parts. And I always had a passion for looking at starting things and getting people to rally around a common vision and then executing on that vision. It's been something that's always sat in my mind. So when I was at Toyota, looking at the manufacturing line, as I mentioned with the Tilt Lab, I've always had ideas as I walked around the paint shop, the assembly shop, and I looked at different things. I would just ask people, why are things the way they are? And it's funny that common response is that they are that way because that's the way they've always been. And I am a millennial, and I grew up in the birth of Google and all these big tech companies, and I thought, that's not really an answer that I'm willing to subscribe to, because clearly the way things have been are not always the way that things will be. And so that passion drove me to continue to look, research. I spent a lot of my time on the internet. I jokingly told people I spend the majority of my life just reading the internet, and they're like, how is that possible? And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of internet. But I landed on studying startups and then really looking at venture capital and then meeting this team out in the Bay Area. I became really passionate about looking for opportunities in this space, and Toyota having a corporate venture capital arm was great. It was a good opportunity and a good transition to go from, I'm passionate about startups. I helped form process around working with startups at Toyota, and then being on the platform team at Toyota Ventures. And I think the thing that I learned as I was transitioning from engineer to venture capital was that a lot of people hear venture capital or build this calibration that it's a money thing. And the thing to know about Toyota Ventures is that we are a strategic partner to the Toyota Motor Corporation, to Toyota Motor North America, and all parts of the Toyota family, which is vast and global. It represents hundreds of brands and hundreds of thousands of employees. So what I realized was that there's two sides of Toyota Ventures. The deal side, the one where you hear about fundraising, you hear about valuations, you hear about exits. And then the side that I sit on is the platform team. So we exist to be more than just the financial check that startups receive. We help these founders, these teams grow and scale throughout their journey, whether it's their journey being just the idea, as I mentioned before, or as they start to develop demonstrations and prototypes for corporate partners, and then all the way to exits. So we're there for the whole life of their company.
Before we get too far into it, give kind of a brief overview, like how many countries are you guys in, or startups you work with, or assets under management? Like what can you tell us about how it's structured, Toyota Ventures?
So a quick overview of Toyota Ventures. We started about 4 years ago. We just closed a new round of capital. So we have launched the Toyota Ventures Frontier Fund and the Toyota Ventures Climate Fund that we manage on behalf of Toyota Motor Corporation. So far, we have done 39 investments. All the public investments are on our website, toyota.ventures. And we help early stage to Series A-ish companies grow in the space. The Frontier Fund focuses on artificial intelligence, autonomy, mobility, robotics, cloud technology, and smart cities, digital health, fintech, energy, and materials. It's a mouthful.
That's all?
Yeah.
That's it?
It's you can think of it as looking at what is next for Toyota, and we are trying to be the Sherpas that help people understand what could be next for Toyota the brand. So the Toyota Ventures Climate Fund focuses on carbon neutrality and as a whole, and then that's thinking what comes next for Toyota in terms of delivering hydrogen, carbon sequestration, et cetera.
So the names, it's funny, I assumed those names, Frontier and Climate, were like, remember when iOS used to always have like the lion or like, I feel like they were always animals. I assumed that was just some like war name or something, but they actually make sense. You guys are looking to the frontier of what's next for Toyota, and then actually what's good for the climate. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys, so you talk about this platform team, you're one of a few on the team, and you guys are not just that financial check, but you actually give support, you give engagement. So what does that actually look like when you work alongside companies?
So as the Toyota Ventures platform team, we are tasked to design products that can add value to our portfolio. As part of that, we developed this hub and spoke model within the Toyota organization. So we look at different champions throughout the business that can help us take a startup idea or take an early stage proof of concept and really drive it forward. Because we realized over time, just making an introduction isn't enough. Sometimes what's required is helping the business see the future. There's a lot of, you can imagine when you're a corporate giant and you are very successful at that, it's hard to see outside the lens of what you have today. So what we try to do is find many people throughout the business that are looking outside, thinking into the future in the same way that we are. And then it's easy because our visions are aligned, our goals are aligned, and we can carry together a new idea. So an easy way to think about this is one of our companies is called Elementary, and they create a visual AI platform. And it helps for quality inspection, for traceability. And when you think about that naturally, it's kind of a logical fit, right? We build cars, we build products, everyone, and there's naturally in manual inspection throughout. So Elementary was a nice fit. We looked at an internal champion at the Tilt Lab, and they've been helping drive the adoption, the training, the understanding of Elementary, the platform, and they have actually been sharing and finding other internal champions to carry projects forward. It's been working very nicely. They did one proof of concept. Actually, funny enough, I was down in the Tilt Lab last week, just looking at, they installed a demonstration cell essentially. And Elementary came in, provided some training and support. They were building consensus with some of the key stakeholders in the business. And I came down to listen in. I was curious. And
I'm sure some of these feel like your babies, like you've met them, you're stewarding them through this relationship. I mean, you work with them, I assume, on a daily, if not weekly basis.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about how these ideas evolve and where they've come from. Elementary, the AI visual inspection platform, actually used to create a robot arm. And there's a few images and photos out of their early prototype and an early concept that we demonstrated and showed. But as with any startup, there are often pivots, and they pivoted and focused narrowly in where they found a lot of customer traction in that inspection space, in creating a really easy to use, really quickly to deploy platform. And that's where Toyota's been really looking at it more as well. It's how does it add value to the process today? And they've found really neat fit from a safety and quality perspective in the sites they're going to now. And I went to that training, and it was interesting to see. I was working with Elementary before I joined Toyota Ventures. And it was interesting to see the evolution of where I left the Tilt Lab and walking back into the Tilt Lab 1.5 years later, thanks to 2020, et cetera. But it was great to just see the evolution. And I will say, to your point, the relationship that we build as a platform team is something I value a lot in my career today. Being able to talk to all these really innovative, forward-looking founders, and having them call or text when they have an idea, or being able to bounce emails back and forth. It's part of the really fulfilling aspect of the platform team, building relationships with who I see as some of the smartest people across the world. Because as Toyota Ventures, we aren't just investing in the Bay Area. We aren't just investing in the US. We're in Canada. We are in Israel. We are a global fund, and we invest globally.
What I like too, we talk a lot about how an idea isn't good enough. The team around the idea matters so much. And you see that both, I think, in the startup space, but also in, internal corporate innovation ideas that grow up within companies. And I love that you guys recognize that it's not just about investing in an idea. You guys build relationships with these founders, with these teams. It's about their people as well and them being successful. An idea can pivot and change and adjust. And I imagine you guys, if you're like most VCs, you're not just looking at the idea, you're looking at the team behind it. You know, who's the founder, what's their background, what's their passion, et cetera. So I love that. So talk to me a little bit more about how do you guys engage with teams? How do you view the importance of a team or the people that surround the ideas you guys work with?
So thinking about teams, I want to answer the question in two parts. So back in my past life, the Tilt Lab actually looked at working with another team as figuring out if we could dance. We had already asked companies to the dance, and we wanted to work together, do a project.
You'd already asked them to prom. They said yes.
And I think the hard part is figuring out if you actually can dance together. And it was our responsibility back then to figure out if the dancing actually worked together, or if we were just going to drop each other as partners. And I think it was a really powerful part of our evaluation to do that, to figure out if the dance was going to go well. And now in Toyota Ventures, I like to think of us, as Jim Adler, our managing director, says, as we're like the membrane between these really high-tech, fast-paced companies and Toyota. And as that membrane, we're trying to help do a little bit of translation. We're trying to help do a little bit of attenuation with expectations and how you talk about your startup. And that's how we work with our teams today. We try to help them approach Toyota as a potential customer in the right way. And whether that's introducing them to the right people, fine-tuning their product market fit, fine-tuning the messaging, just so it lands right on the other side of the fence, is where we sit today.
I think a lot of companies are looking for their employees to just have ideas, which you can have a lot of ideas within companies, and that's great. I think often idea dump is probably a bigger problem. But what's a harder thing internal to a company is to form, like I said, the right teams around them. It's not just about having all A players at the table. You need people from different parts of the organization to grow them. So I love that connection between what I think we're seeing within companies and how we help them think about how to build ideas. You guys are doing that with already formed companies and how to integrate them into a larger whole within the Toyota company, which again, it's not just about the tech or a specific idea, but is it a good dance partner? You know, you have to have a whole dance team to make it work. So I love that.
Yeah. And on the topic of just companies forming teams around ideas, I think the key there is a diversity of thought. It was something that I really pushed for in the Tilt Lab, and I think is much easier today in my role in venture capital because it's kind of a natural formation of diversity of thought. It's really easy in a corporate environment to think only in your department, only in your division, only in your team. But when you have a more holistic view of the world and more holistic view of what's possible, it's easier to bring together diverse thought and diverse talent. So you mentioned the A player. I think of that in many ways. There's A players that are strategy folks. There's A players that are doers. There's A players that are makers. I think back in my past experience, actually, in the Tilt Lab and the demo day I mentioned, and it was a broad mix to make that successful. There was no, like, I think people always think about like a shiny unicorn or an A player star as some singular individual that rallies the troops, or that maybe even just a singular founder is the reason someone is successful. And I disagree. I think it's the team, the diversity, the really taking all the different people that care about an idea, care about the success of a company, whether it's your corporate company or a startup, and then driving all those folks to a common goal and a common success.
I've mentioned this before, so apologize to our listeners who have heard me say this, but we interviewed a woman named Jay-Z Rosenstein-Whitman. She used to be with Google, and a lot of the research she did there was around team dynamics, team formation. And one of the things that there is data-backed research behind is that to put all quote unquote perceived A players on a team doesn't necessarily make a great team. It's about, do they communicate well? Do they get along? Do they have shared common goals? Diversity of thought, diversity in all regards of do they have what it takes to actually grow this? You can't have all, type A extroverts on a team. It's not going to go anywhere. And I think we see that a lot. You've got to have, the quiet engineer or the person from HR who's thinking about the ramifications for other part. You have to have all the views at the table to really make something grow. And I love that you're further confirming that's true, both internally and externally. I'm curious. So you've talked a lot about companies that you guys invest in that work with Toyota. Do you guys only invest in companies that relate to Toyota's future or, for financial returns? What does that strategy look like? Kind of a different direction, but for Toyota Ventures as a whole, what kind of companies are you guys looking to invest in?
Yeah, so we look for both financial returns and strategic value. We believe that financial returns are a requirement to be a valuable strategic partner, because if a startup cannot succeed financially, then they won't be a good partner in the long term.
That's great. I think that's really helpful. So to startups listening to this, to kind of bring us home, what thoughts or advice would you give to startups listening to this who want to work with larger companies? Maybe that's Toyota, maybe it's not, but what are just some kind of parting thoughts on things to keep in mind if they want to enter into that game?
Yeah, I think selling into an enterprise is one of the most challenging experiences a startup founder will go through. And it's something that is a bit unique, because what you hear a lot in podcasts and media is B2C companies. So folks that are selling into the consumer market, and you can rapidly see success. The enterprise world moves a bit slower. And so it takes a lot on both the founder side to their team and the founder side to the potential enterprise client to manage expectations. Manage expectations in timeline, in deal size, in speed. As a startup, your superpower is speed. You can move faster than any Fortune 100, Fortune 500 company ever could dream of. They are turning a cruise ship essentially, and you are just turning a speedboat. And so I think my advice to founders out there and to startups that are looking at enterprise engagements is to really thoroughly manage expectations, and just realize that they are really thinking about how you dance together. And a misalignment of expectations is when you drop your dance partner.
I wish I would have known that at prom. So last question, what is something maybe either personally or for Toyota Ventures as a whole that you guys are proud of? Again, you can take this whether you're like, man, I'm proud of my career that like I basically built a tilt lab, or at Toyota Ventures, we're really proud that we've done X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
So again, I'll take this one in two parts. In my career, I am super proud of just having met all the individuals I have that have allowed and enabled the creation of the Tilt Lab, the growth and success of Toyota Motor and what they're building in their future factory. And then at Toyota Ventures in my new career, I think I am most proud of us being a founder first corporate venture capital firm. We live by this. In the true Toyota mindset, our customer is the startup, and we will always put the startup first because we believe that their success is our success as Toyota Ventures.
Man, amen to that. May all the enterprise engagements have that perspective. So, well, Carla, thank you so much. I just love that. I'm hoping our listeners, again, can kind of actually get a peek into what enterprise engagement, as you call it, I'm going to start using that, or, just corporate VC can look like. I think Toyota Ventures can be kind of big and scary and shrouded in like, well, they're Toyota. But I don't think it's out of the question for even much smaller, still, mid to large size companies to start dreaming in this way. What does it look like for them to look outside of just traditional M&A and to, what is investing in technology, investing in people look like. So I'm very excited for people to learn from this and appreciate you driving all the way down here to come talk to us.
Thank you. Appreciate your time today and love the interview.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you know someone who should be on our show, even if it's you, reach out to us at innovationincubated.com. And while you're on our website, sign up for our newsletter. Lastly, thanks to our sponsor, Apex Software. The right software partner can change everything. So reach out today at apexsoftware.com. Until next time, go team.